right, folks, we are back here on WLTH 1370 AM. It is 7:23 in the PM here on December the 20th, 2024. The future's here. The future is now. That's right. We just had the Happy Happies and paid tribute in our musical spotlight to the lovely Miss Angie Stone, who loves her black brothers. God bless her. And we are going through the biggest news stories of the year 2024. So to recap, number 10 was the assassination of insurance company CEO Brian Thompson. Number 9 was Caitlin Clark and the rise of women's sports. Number 8 was the Russia-Ukraine war, possibly leading to World War III coming up here in the future. Number 7 was Diddy and the baby oil, arrested in Manhattan and charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution. Number 6 was Joe Biden stepping down because they could not hide his lack of mental acuity any longer. The Democratic Party couldn't. Number 5 was more mass shootings, which is pretty much on the list every year I've done this. So hopefully the year 2025, the year of our Lord, will be different. But I won't hold my breath. Let's get into number 4.
It's heartbreaking to see, and now we've seen it with our own eyes. There have been thousands of Tennesseans praying for the Tennesseans here in Upper East Tennessee, and there has been a great deal of effort put in making sure that help is on the way and assistance gets here. There's a lot of damage out there, and there are bridges out. We've seen those. There are roads that are impassable now, so that isolates people for certain.
When you get in the air and you see the devastation, and these are not just, businesses, these are people, these are friends, these are our families that I've taken care of, and it's something like we've never seen in this part of the state. Who would think that a hurricane would do this much damage in East Tennessee? But that's where we're at, and I've had people reach out from all over the country to say, what can I do to help you?
Yep. What we're seeing now with the amount of storms and natural disasters are becoming much more prevalent. We've always had hurricanes. We've always had earthquakes. We've always had wildfires and these types of things. But in the year 2024, and as time goes on, these storms are becoming more and more intense. We saw even in places like Spain, in Valencia, Spain, pretty much the entire city wiped out. We saw in North Carolina, we saw floods in North Carolina where places like Asheville, North Carolina, which aren't even on the coast. Asheville is inland, hundreds of miles away from the coast, and yet it was destroyed by flooding. We saw Hurricane Helene, which was the deadliest Atlantic hurricane since Hurricane Maria in 2017, make its landfall in Florida as a Category 4 hurricane. The death toll of that as it stands is 236, and over 680 people are still missing to this day after Hurricane Helene. And then we saw Hurricane Milton, which was an extremely powerful cyclone, a tropical cyclone, which became the second most intense Atlantic hurricane ever recorded over the Gulf of Mexico, only behind Hurricane Rita. Way back in 2005, Milton made landfall on the west coast of Florida just 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene. So these things are coming weeks after each other. Historic storms that we haven't seen are coming within weeks of each other. The 13th storm, the 9th hurricane, the 4th major hurricane, and the 2nd Category 5 hurricane of the 2024 Atlantic season, Milton was. It was the strongest tropical cyclone to happen worldwide in the year 2024. So this is where we are, and this is another one of those stories where it just seems like there doesn't seem to be a way out of this one. I don't know exactly what we're going to do or how we can prevent this or how we can really go forward in the near future. I predicted for a long time that places like Gary, because we are in the Midwest, so far inland, because we are on the Great Lakes, which is 20% of the world's fresh water, a lot of these people who fled the Midwest in the 60s and the 70s to go live in the Sun Belt states, to go live in Florida, to go live in Texas, to go live in, Louisiana and Alabama and Mississippi and Arizona and California. A lot of these people are going to end up moving back to the Midwest. This is another reason why I tell you guys not to sell your homes, because a lot of people are going to flee back here because there are going to be a lot of climate refugees here in the near future. And this situation is only going to get worse. We are looking at a future where Miami, Florida, and New Orleans may be permanently underwater very soon, within the next 100 years or so. Where Manhattan in New York City may be underwater in the next 100 years or so. Maybe even less than that. We're talking about catastrophic population change. We're talking about climate refugees on a scale around the world that there's never been ever in human history. And a lot of us here in the Midwest, I don't think we're prepared for that. I don't think we're ready for that. I don't think we understand what is coming down the pike in the next few decades. And that is definitely one of those things that we're going to have to look out for. So that is number 4. Climate changing, natural disasters here on WLTH, our biggest stories of 2023, straight out of the cannon. Let's go to number 3.
This is Julie Carr Smythe in Butler County, Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump's rally has just been evacuated after shots rung out from the crowd, and the president dropped on the stage and was surrounded by his Secret Service, and 2 people in the crowd apparently were injured. They were in the grandstands to the left of the podium where he was speaking. He is okay, has been whisked off the stage, and the entire grounds have been evacuated at this point, and have been declared an active crime scene by the Secret Service.
Yeah, this is another one of those stories where if this had happened any other year other than 2024, we would be completely gobsmacked by it. But because it's happening now, it's just like another day. Our former president and future president was actually shot. I know a lot of y'all don't believe he was. You're going to have to show me a lot more evidence to convince me that he was not. But our former president and future president was actually shot at a rally. We were this close from having a civil war in the United States of America. If Trump dies, and let's just be real. I mean, he's not completely out of the woods yet. He hasn't taken office in, it's not January 20th yet. He hasn't taken office yet. If something happens to Donald Trump before he takes office, or while he's in office, that the idea of a second American Civil War is not out of the question. I really hope you guys understand that, what is possible, what we are looking at. in the scenario of something happening to a figure like Donald Trump, who has such a devout, almost at times fanatical base of people who support him. Really, there is a fanatical element to a lot of the MAGA people, and we were very close from having wars in the streets of America because our former and future president was shot. I remember when this happened. Again, the conspiracy theories on both sides. From the left, they were saying Trump wasn't really shot, and that, you know, it was all a huge psyop or something. I don't know. To me, that doesn't make much sense. Joe Biden is in charge of the Secret Service. Why would Joe Biden's Secret Service, including the director he hired, Kimberly Cheadle, Joe Biden hired her, okay? Why would she go along with something like that? Why would she do that? Why would Joe Biden's Secret Service go along with that? And why would Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and these people hire Secret Service people who would go along with something like that for Donald Trump? Because it is the president. It's the president's job to ensure that his opponent is safe. These aren't Donald Trump's security guards that he's paying. Those are Secret Service people paid by us and assigned by the current president and the current administration. Why would people in the Biden administration help Donald Trump stage an attack? We also have video, a lot of video from around the world. We have video from the Australians, from the French, from all the people who were there. There was hundreds of cell phone cameras at the time that show what happened. There was a really incredible Associated Press picture that shows the bullet whizzing right past Donald Trump, either after exiting him or whizzing past him. So again, those don't check out. And then from the right, you had the conspiracy theories that Joe Biden was trying to have him killed, that the Democrats are trying to have Donald Trump killed. And so, you know, again, we were very close to having American history changed forever, like having a serious, I mean, I can't think of anything that would bring this country more to a brink of a civil war than something like that happening. And I believe we got very fortunate as a people. I mean, American people specifically, that he turned his head when he turned his head. Because if he doesn't, like I said, if he doesn't, there is we are having a very different discussion. I think we might all be walking around with bulletproof vests on currently if indeed something was allowed to, if Donald Trump had actually perished in that situation. So number 3, Donald Trump being shot it's the number 3 story here on Straight Out of the Cannon, 10 biggest political stories of the year 2024. Let's go to number 2.
Israel's war in the Gaza Strip has reached another grim milestone. Palestinian health officials in the territory say the death toll in more than 14 months of fighting has now reached over 45,000 people. The Gaza Health Ministry doesn't differentiate between militants and civilians, but it does say that more than half of the dead were women and children. Israel has questioned these figures. Officials say that they believe roughly half of the dead are Palestinian militants, but they haven't been clear on how they've reached those numbers. Either way, this is a huge number. 45,000 people amounts to roughly 2% of Gaza's entire pre-war population, and this doesn't include thousands of people who still remain unaccounted for. It's believed that they are buried in the rubble left behind by the fighting. The war, of course, has had taken a heavy toll on the Israeli side as well. Officials report over 1,800 people killed since the war erupted in October 2023. Also, roughly 100 people are still being held hostage in Gaza. Now, these numbers come at a time of rising hopes for a ceasefire. International mediators, the U.S., Egypt, Qatar, have resumed their mediation efforts and have been moving across the region, holding very high-level talks. There are signs of optimism. You hear it on the Israeli side and the Hamas side that they are close to a deal, but we have been through this drill before many times during this war. All sides caution that there are still key details that need to be worked out, so it's unclear if or when there finally will be a deal to end this war.
Yes, as you see right there, we are in entering year two of the Gaza-Israel conflict, but in general, the Middle East is on fire. We talked about earlier the Russia-Ukraine situation possibly being a catalyst for World War III. Well, the Israel-Palestine conflict said, hold my beer, okay, because this also could be a catalyst for World War III. And what we are seeing right now, we just saw the administration, the regime of Bashar al-Assad fall in Syria just last week. Just last week, we covered that. How it's fallen, and Israel has occupied the Golan Heights in Syria, much to the chagrin of Turkey and other Muslim countries. We're already stretched pretty thin as a country, and our support of Israel has caused great anger amongst much of the Arab world and the Muslim world, including in this country. That was a big part of why Kamala Harris lost. People don't like to talk about it, but in places like Dearborn, Michigan, where Joe Biden won these places by 30 and 40 and 50 points, Kamala Harris lost them. She lost the Arab vote. She did worse than Jill Stein with these communities. If she just comes out and says, I'm pro a ceasefire and I'm going to pause the weapon shipments to Israel, she probably wins Michigan. And who knows what we're talking about. We might be having a totally different discussion when it comes to the presidential election. There's a big Muslim population. You guys know a big black Muslim population in Philadelphia. How many black Muslims stayed home in places like Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Detroit, Dearborn? Like, how many of these people stayed home because of what we saw in Gaza, the genocide that's going on, that now you have a lot of medical journals estimating we could be nearing 300,000 people dying. 300,000 of a population of 2.2 million people. We have countless who fled or have been trapped in Gaza. We have people in the West Bank who are being killed on a daily basis by Israel. Again, we are courting disaster. We're simultaneously taunting Iran. We're simultaneously taunting Russia. We're simultaneously taunting China because we're taunting them with Taiwan. These are the three powers we wanted to keep separate. We spent whole decades trying to keep China and Russia away from each other. And now we seem to be pushing these people closer together. So this could be absolutely disastrous. Number two, the Middle East is on fire, and because we're running out of time, let's get to number one.
From the Associated Press, this is an Election 2024 update. Live from Washington, here is Meg Kennard.
This is a breaking alert that has just moved on the AP wire. The Associated Press has called the presidency for Republican Donald Trump. This call comes after the AP determined that Trump was the winner of the battleground state of Wisconsin, whose 10 electoral votes put him over the threshold of the 270 needed to be declared the winner of the race for the White House. Vote counting in some states is still ongoing. At this hour, we do have an update on the electoral votes for each candidate. Trump has 277, and Democrat Kamala Harris has 224. This is a moment of history for the United States. Trump is only the second U.S. president ever elected to return to the White House after losing it. He's also the first president.
Yep. Trump wins again. Trump wins, LOL. Yes. Donald Trump was reelected. Some things have come out since the election ended, where we find out now that the Democrats knew that Kamala Harris wasn't winning. Like you saw David Plouffe, who was Barack Obama's right-hand man, say that, and also worked on Kamala Harris's campaign, say that none of their internal polling of the Democratic Party had Kamala Harris winning. They all had her losing. So this means that this woman went out and raised over $1 billion, $1.5 billion, spent it recklessly, while at the same time knowing they all knew that she had no shot to win. They had all of us fooled, including me. I jumped out the window and predicted Kamala Harris would win the election because I thought the polls would at least be somewhat accurate. I got egg on my face. I predicted she'd win. I just, and now we know that even the Democratic Party itself knew that she had no chance to win. And they lied to us. They knew she was a bad candidate. They knew that she could not improvise. They knew that she was uncomfortable being interviewed. That's why she stayed away from doing as many interviews as possible. And so the Democratic Party basically lied to the public. They basically lied to us. And more than anything, the media lied to us. All the polls from all these supposedly trusted, sources that had her winning. Even they all had her winning the popular vote. Even if they had her possibly losing the Electoral College, they all had her winning the popular vote. I thought she'd win the popular vote. I thought it was, you know, if she lost, it would be she'd win the popular vote and lose the Electoral College. She lost both. And the Democrats knew she was going to lose both. Hopefully there will be a reckoning within that party. Finally, I've been telling you guys since I've been here at WLTH that the real war has been between the corporate sellout wing of the Democratic Party, the Clintons and the Obamas, their people, and holding back the actual left wing of the party and holding back the newer. It's just like here in the city of Gary. You have people, the old entrenched people who will refuse to leave, refuse to give up their seat, and do everything they can to ruin anybody who challenges them. And so there's never any accountability for Nancy Pelosi or for Obama or for the Clintons or any of these people who've run the Democratic Party into the ground over the last 30 years. There's never, at least the Republicans, there was a reckoning within their party for Bush and those types of people. George Bush got humiliated. His brother got humiliated by Donald Trump because the Republicans are actually a Democratic Party. Donald Trump could have never won it as a Democrat because the establishment wouldn't let him win. But he was able to win as a Republican because they do have some Democratic means within their party. So that means an outsider can come in and humiliate the establishment, which is what he did to George W. Bush and to Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio and all those other people that he embarrassed and usually, I mean, he basically punks them out on a regular basis. And that's what the Democratic Party has needed. They need their own Trump to come in and completely destroy the party and rebuild it in his image. But that's not going to happen because, again, the Democratic Party, there's no democracy in the Democratic Party So expect more embarrassing losses probably in the near future. Here in the state of Indiana, we have a new governor, Mike Braun, who is a MAGA Republican, unfortunately. In District 1, Carolyn Jackson won re-election. Earl Harris Jr. won re-election. And Reagan Hatcher won re-election. We dealt with Eddie Melton's first year as the mayor here in the city of Gary. He's trying to get us to sell U.S. Steel, which I don't agree. I don't agree with selling it to the Japanese. They should have sold it to Cleveland Cliffs if they were going to sell it to somebody. But selling one of your important steel mills, your vital steel mills, to a foreign power, especially one that you dropped nuclear bombs on, I don't care if it was 80 years ago, not a smart thing to do. He has knocked down a lot of abandoned buildings, so I definitely appreciate that. So, number one, the 2024 election, and obviously politics will always be the biggest story there is. We'll be right back to say goodbye to everybody we lost in the year 2024. Please stay with us here on Straight Out of the Cannon so I can mop up before Dr. Williams comes in with the 2x4 and escorts me out personally.